It started on an ordinary morning, the kind of morning you never expect to remember. I was sitting at the kitchen table, reading the newspaper, a steaming cup of coffee beside me. The sun was spilling through the curtains, and everything felt calm, familiar, until my hand began to tremble. At first, it was just a tiny shake, barely noticeable. The cup rattled softly against the saucer, and a drop of coffee ran down my fingers. I frowned, thinking it was just nerves or maybe too much caffeine. But when I tried to steady my hand, it wouldn't stop. I laughed it off. "Guess I'm just getting older," I said out loud, even though there was no one else in the room. But deep down, a small flicker of fear sparked in my chest, because my father's hands had started the same way, right before he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. That thought stuck to me like glue all day. When I reached for the remote, my fingers trembled. When I signed a check, my pen scratched across the paper. And that night when I brushed my teeth, the toothbrush buzzed against my teeth with an uneven rhythm that made my stomach twist. I tried to ignore it for a few days, but the tremor didn't go away. In fact, it seemed to grow bolder, like it was reminding me it was there. Every morning, every small task, it whispered one terrifying word in my mind: Parkinson's. My wife Linda noticed it first. We were having breakfast when she reached across the table and said, "Honey, you're shaking. Are you okay?" I looked down at my hand, hovering above the table like a leaf in the wind. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. I just nodded and muttered, "It's nothing, probably just tired." But later that day, as I tried to write a grocery list, my handwriting came out shaky, uneven. Letters leaned into each other like they were drunk. That's when I felt it, a cold wave of fear I hadn't felt in years, because I knew this wasn't just tired. Something was wrong. That night I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house, the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the clock, felt too loud. My heart pounded in my chest, and my mind raced with questions I couldn't answer. Was this how it began for my father? Was this my future too? By morning, I made a decision. It was time to see Dr. Harris, the same man who had seen me through a dozen colds, a knee surgery, and a mild heart scare years ago. But this visit felt different. This one carried fear. As I buttoned my shirt that morning, I noticed my hands again. The left one trembled slightly as I reached for the collar. It was subtle, almost gentle, but to me, it felt like thunder. And for the first time in my life, I whispered a prayer under my breath, not for strength, but for answers. Dr. Harris's office smelled faintly of coffee and disinfectant, the kind of scent that feels both familiar and frightening. He looked up from his desk with a warm smile, but the moment he saw my trembling hands, his expression changed. "How long has this been happening, George?" he asked gently, his eyes focused not on my face, but on my fingers. I hesitated, glancing down at my hand as it twitched slightly on my knee. "A few weeks," I admitted. "I thought it was just stress, or maybe too much coffee." He nodded slowly, jotting notes on his pad. Then he said the word I was dreading. "Any family history of Parkinson's?" The room went silent for a moment. I felt my throat tighten. My father had it. Started in his 60s. Dr. Harris leaned back in his chair. "All right," he said softly. "Let's not jump to conclusions. Tremors can happen for many reasons, not all of them serious. We'll do a few simple tests." He asked me to hold my hands out straight in front of me. I did. The right hand trembled gently, steady, rhythmic, almost defiant. Then he asked me to touch my finger to my nose, then to his moving finger. I missed once, just once, but that was enough to make my stomach twist. He smiled softly, trying to reassure me. "George, this could be essential tremor, thyroid imbalance, or even something as simple as a vitamin deficiency." He placed a hand on my shoulder. "Don't assume Parkinson's until we rule everything else out." His calm tone should have eased me, but as I left his office, the fear followed me, lurking behind every heartbeat, every shake, every thought. Linda was waiting in the car. When I got in, she looked at me, searching my face for answers. "What did he say?" I tried to smile. "He's not sure yet. Wants some blood work, maybe a scan." But even as I said it, I could feel the heaviness in my chest, that unspoken fear we both shared. That night, the tremors seemed worse. As I tried to hold my fork at dinner, my hand trembled so much that peas rolled off the edge of my plate. Linda reached over and gently held my hand to steady it. Her eyes glistened with tears she tried to hide. "We'll figure this out," she whispered, and I nodded even though I wasn't sure I believed it. Over the next few days, I did the tests. Blood work, neurological exams, even a brain scan. Each result took time, and with each passing day, my anxiety grew heavier. I started avoiding social gatherings, avoiding friends, even avoiding my reflection. Every morning, I would stare at my hands, waiting, watching, testing. Sometimes the tremor was soft, sometimes stronger. And every time the same thought whispered through my mind. "It's Parkinson's. It has to be." A week later, Dr. Harris called. He said he had the results and wanted me to come in. His voice was calm, but something in his tone made my heart race. As I hung up the phone, I looked down at my shaking hand and prayed this wasn't the beginning of the end. When I walked into Dr. Harris's office that morning, I could tell something was different. He wasn't smiling, but he wasn't grim either, just calm. The kind of calm doctors use when they know you're scared. He gestured for me to sit, and for a moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioner. Finally, he looked up from his folder and said, "George, it's not Parkinson's." For a second, I didn't believe what I heard. The words hung in the air like a lifeline. "It's not?" I whispered. He shook his head gently. "No, your brain scans are clean. Your reflexes and balance are all normal." I let out a shaky breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. But before relief could settle in, he added, "However, your blood tests showed something unusual. Your vitamin B12 levels are extremely low." I blinked in confusion. "B12? You mean like a vitamin deficiency?" He nodded. "Exactly. Low B12 can damage the nerves that control movement. In some people, it causes tremors, numbness, even memory issues. It can look a lot like Parkinson's." I stared at him, trying to wrap my head around it. After weeks of fear, tests, and sleepless nights, it came down to a vitamin. A simple, missing piece of the puzzle. Something I could fix. Dr. Harris explained that as we age, our stomachs produce less acid, making it harder to absorb B12 from food. Sometimes long-term medications, like acid reducers or metformin, can make it worse. He looked at me kindly and said, "You're going to be okay, George. We'll start you on B12 injections and supplements. Within a few weeks, those tremors should fade." I nodded slowly, still in disbelief. "So it's not my brain, it's my blood." He smiled softly. "In a way, yes. Your nerves have been starving, not for rest, but for nutrients. Once we feed them, they'll recover." When I stepped outside, The sunlight hit my face like a warm hand on my shoulder. For weeks, I had been living under the shadow of fear, thinking I was losing myself, one tremor at a time. But now, there was light again. Linda was waiting in the car. She looked up the moment she saw me and asked, "What did he say?" I smiled, a real smile this time, and said, "It's not Parkinson's. It's just low B12. Tears welled up in her eyes before she even spoke. She reached over and took my hand, the same hand that had been trembling for weeks, and whispered, "Thank God." For the first time in a long while, my body felt lighter. The fear was still there, hiding in the corners of my mind, but hope, real, tangible hope, had returned. Dr. Harris's words echoed in my mind all the way home. Sometimes the smallest things in the body can cause the biggest fears. I couldn't stop thinking about how close I'd come to assuming the worst, when the truth was something completely different, something fixable, something human. It's been 6 months since that day in Dr. Harris's office, and I still remember the way the sunlight looked when I walked out, as if the world had suddenly decided to give me another chance. The first few weeks weren't easy. Every morning, Linda would drive me to the clinic for my B12 shots. At first, I didn't feel much difference. The tremors were still there, soft but stubborn. I started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, it really wasn't going to get better. But then, about 3 weeks in, something changed. I woke up one morning and reached for my coffee mug, and for the first time in months, my hand didn't shake. It was steady, still. I held it there for a few seconds, afraid to move, like I might scare it away if I blinked. When I told Linda, she cried. Not loud tears, the quiet kind that just slip down your cheeks when you realize life is giving you a small miracle. We hugged in the kitchen, and I could feel my hand resting on her back, still and calm. Over the next few months, things only got better. The fog in my head lifted, the tiredness that had followed me everywhere, gone. I started walking again, even joined a local senior fitness group. Every step felt like I was taking my life back. Dr. Harris said my nerve function was improving beautifully. He explained that B12 helps form the protective sheath around our nerves, the myelin. When that sheath breaks down, signals get scrambled, and that's what causes the tremors and weakness. But with the right nutrients, the body can repair itself in remarkable ways. I couldn't believe it. After months of thinking my life was over, a simple vitamin deficiency was the real villain. It made me realize how fragile, yet how resilient the human body truly is. So now I tell everyone my age the same thing. Don't assume the worst. Sometimes your body isn't breaking, it's just missing something. I even started volunteering at our community center, sharing my story with others who think their shaking hands or tired legs mean the end of independence, because I know now it doesn't have to be. There's this one moment that stays with me. A man about my age, John, came up after one of my talks. His hands were trembling. He told me with tears in his eyes, "I think you just described me." I smiled and said, "Then don't wait, John. Go get tested. Sometimes answers are smaller than we think." 2 months later, he called me. His tremors were almost gone. Turns out his B12 was low too. That's when I realized something profound. Our stories can heal more than just ourselves. They can light the way for others still stuck in the dark. So now every morning when I pour my coffee, I pause for a moment, steady hand, calm heart, and whisper a quiet thank you. For the lesson,
for the second chance, and for the reminder that not every tremor is a sentence. Sometimes it's just a signal that says, take care of yourself. Listen, because healing often begins with the simplest truth. My name is George, and my shaking hands taught me something beautiful. That hope, just like B12, can bring your nerves and your life back to balance.